Membees Amid Aleph. So we just finished a Mayridik Gemara, Machlekes Abaya and Rava, regarding how you could not be Yotzei the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog. Why do you want to not be Yotzei the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog? Because we're discussing when you could by mistake carry out your Lulav on Shabbos and be putter from a carbon. Why you putter from a carbon? Because you're tarud, you're thinking about doing the mitzvah. Because you're thinking about doing the mitzvah, you're putter. Said the Gemara on the top line of Mebeit Aleph Erev Tov of David. Said the Gemara that the only time you're going to be putter, explains Abaye, is if you were not yoytze. Once you're yoytze, you're going to be chayiv. Says the Gemara, 1 second. The moment you pick it up, are you not yoytze? Said the Gemara, two terutzim. Either you flipped it over, good old flip the esrog move, or you're holding it in a kli, in a vessel, and we got involved in the machlekes whether lekicha de davar achar shma lekicha. That's what we ended yesterday. Amar Rav Huna. We're about 10 lines down. The warning is the first one shtickle of Gemara is a dot difficult. That's the warning. After that, it's smooth sailing. So again, let's just review. What is the side that we're honing in on? That you're by mistake, you're that bozo walking to shul on Shabbos with your lulav and esrog, and you're violating Hilchah Shabbos, of course, because you're carrying. And we said you're putter. Why you putter from a carbon? Because you think you're doing a mitzvah. You're tarud in a mitzvah. And tarud in a mitzvah, we're saying you're going to be putter from a carbon. You're going to be putter from a carbon. Good? Everyone's on the same page? Good. Amar Rav Huna Omer Haya Rav Yesi. Says Rav Huna. Rav Yesi says, Oilas ha'oif. We have a carbon oila, which is an oif, which is a bird. Shenimsa, that is found bein agipayim. Now, what exactly does that mean? So, we'll go look at our trusted friend called Rashi, Erev Tov Reb Yankiv. We look at our trusted friend called Rashi, and Rashi says, Mamish directly across. What is a oilas ha'oif shenimsa bein agipayim? Says Rashi, Nira be'inai. Nira be'inai. 1 second, hold on 1 second. I wanted to give you the literal translation of agapayim, and I actually don't know, so I opened up. Yeah, there's really no literal translation. Okay, good. Let's let Rashi talk for a minute. Yeah, let's let Rashi talk. Rashi says, "Nira be'inai, the high bein agapayim." What does these words mean? Einoi elo loshain oifos. Rashi says the word agapayim really means oifos, birds. Oila sa oif. We have a carbon oila. Shenimsa, that is found bein oifos, between the birds. Hamilukim lechatos, that are shechted, malika, for a chatos, a mefarchesin, etzel hamizbeach. So the problem is, you find a carbon, and you don't know what is this carbon. Is it a carbon chatos, or is it a carbon oila? Now, there's one incredible difference without making things complicated. What's the simple difference between a chatos and an oila? Very good. An oila goes to God. A chatos, you eat. So what happened is you found your carbon oila. Or I should say better, you found a bird. And you thought, you nimsa, you thought that it was a carbon chatos. Now again, what's the nafkamina? Is that the chatos you get to eat. Let's read the words inside. You found it amongst the birds, the kasavar, and you thought chatos oifi. You thought it was a carbon chatos. And what did you do? Va'achla, and you ate it. So what's the problem? It's not a carbon chatos. What's it really? A carbon oila. Are you allowed to eat a carbon oila? Absolutely not. So the question is, you just violated a terrible halacha. You ate a carbon that wasn't for you. It was God's food, literally. It was kadshe shamayim. It would belong straight to heaven. What is the halacha? So again, a carbon oila that you thought was a chatas and you ate it. What's the halacha? Pater. you're potter. So now, why are you potter? My kamashlan, what's the chiddush over here? Tita bidvar mitzvah. You made a mistake while doing a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? You thought this was a carbon. You thought it was a carbon chatas that you're allowed to eat. So the chiddush is you made a mistake in a mitzvah and you're a potter. Period. Says the Gemara. So what is this?
You have to eat it, or
What's bothering you?
I'm saying, is it something that otherwise?
Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's see the Gemara. Very good, very good. Let's get there 1 second. So we start today with a case. Again, you think it's a carbon chatas, it's really carbon ayla. You're potter because you were doing a mitzvah. You made a mistake. Let's be precise in the translation, which Rav Yaakov you're really honing in on. You made a mistake in a divar mitzvah, in a matter of a mitzvah. Says the Gemara, Hainu hach. This is our case. What's our case? You're walking to shul with your lulav. You think you're going to do a mitzvah. Really, what are you doing? You're being over a dreadful aveira. You're tall bidvar mitzvah. You're potter. Says the Gemara, this is l'chayra, the same case as ours. Answers, and that's a kasha, obviously, because why do we need to find the same case twice? Answers the Gemara, ma who did tema. I would have thought, ha, some who did ta bidvar mitzvah potter over there when you make a mistake. When you're doing a mitzvah, which is over there, that's by us in the case of the lulav. Why? Hainu da'avad mitzvah. Because lamaisa, what did you do? You did a mitzvah. You took out your lulav and your esrog, but lamaisa, that's called a mitzvah. Aval hacha, but over here by the carbon, did you do a mitzvah? Did ta bidvar mitzvah? You made a mistake in the mitzvah. V'loy avad mitzvah. Because what did you eat? You ate an oilah. You didn't do a mitzvah b'chlal. Meaning, in our case, it's true. You're holding your lulav in the middle of the street and you're violating Shabbos. But you're also doing a mitzvah. You're also holding your lulav at the end of the day. In this case, what are you doing? You're just doing one big dreadful aveira. You're eating God's food. You're eating a carbon oilah. So ma'u de teima, I would have thought. Ha, samu de ta b'dvar mitzvah, you're potter. Hainu de avan mitzvah. It's only when you did a mitzvah. But in the case of the carbon, teta bidvar mitzvah, viloy ovan mitzvah, aim you would think no. Now let's be careful with aim you would think no what, and therefore you would think you're a chay of a carbon. It does not have the exemption of doing a mitzvah by mistake. Kamash malan, that you are potter. Again, let's read this out outside. We have our case. Our case is while you're walking the street with your lulav, and what's the halach? The halach is that you are potter from a carbon. You did an avera. Don't think potter means you get a gold star. You did an avera, but the avera you did is somewhat mitigated. Why? Because you thought you're going to do a mitzvah. So ta bidvar mitzvah. What's the halacha? That's the chiddush that you're going to be potter. The Gemara says, I'll tell you another case, the exact same case. You think it's a chatos, it's really an ayla. Ta b'dvar mitzvah potter. Why do you have to say the same case 2 times? Explains the Gemara, no, there's a fundamental difference between the 2 cases. When the ta b'dvar mitzvah was that you did a mitzvah, lamaisa, you carried out your lulav. Maybe that's where you're potter. But when it's ta b'dvar mitzvah, you didn't even do a mitzvah. What did you do? All you did is one big avira. You think maybe you're chay of a carbon. Kamash malan.
What is the punishment for eating nana?
So the chiddush that we're learning now is that you don't have to bring a carbon. Your chayiv kares pashtus because you ate. Yeah. Because you were over in Me'ila, it's called. Let's look at Rashi together. Look at Rashi. Divrei Masal Potter. Potter. Look at Rashi. Your potter me carbon Me'ila. Your potter from a carbon. Hoyel the imachatos nimseis v'achilasa is a mitzvah. Tachsev va'achlu esam. I should keep up them. Havli tarbes are a mitzvah potter. So the chiddush is that you don't bring a carbon because you thought you're doing a mitzvah. But lamaisa, what did you do? You're over in Me'ilah. I believe Me'ilah is kares. You misused and you abused hektish properties. I believe the halacha is kares. You just can't bring a carbon. Again, bringing carbonis is confusing. The fact you don't bring a carbon is not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. That means you can't get a carbon.
Yeah, but the fact that you're putter
No, well, that's every mazid.
means
If
that
you,
you're not
no. That's why carbon is backwards. When you do, if someone is machal shabbos with mazid,
Right, that's
you
amazing.
get skila.
Right, but here he didn't do it. Here it's the
So,
opposite.
so there's two levels. The shayla is it called ta'abit var mitzvah, which will exempt you from the carbon. That's the chiddush that it is. You've added in avera. You just didn't avera without knowing. It's more like an
Yes,
einus.
it should be a good exemption from a
Correct.
Not
No. It is.
Not a bad
No, 100%. 100%.
means that you should
I agree
keep
with
five
you.
cars.
I agree with you. The Maisi didn't avera though. One is b'dei shemayim, one is b'dei adam. That's every time
Fuck,
you
you
did.
take Shemaim too, maybe.
Okay, maybe I'm not. David just asked, what is the? We're not. You're not arguing.
Right.
Yes, what is the einish for stam misusing basically the property? That I believe is courage. Now you're right. If in our case you wouldn't get courage, because in our case you didn't know what you were doing.
A car Mila would take you out of the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a case
Yeah.
That's every carbon. That's always carbon. It's always worked. Every chi of Shabbos is carbon and courage. The two go together. But again, that's not really our sugya.
here we don't need a carbon because
Correct.
you're not five.
That's
because
here.
you're not five cars.
No, that's true. It's here. Someone was asking, what if you stop? You go for take the carbon oil and you get good. Okay. Meisvei nacha kasha. Another question. Rav Yasi Omer Sheikhet es hatamid. You shech the carbon tamid. She'enoi mivukar kehol chasai, which was not checked according to halacha. And what happened? It had a mum. So you didn't check your carbon, and you shechted it. What's halacha? B'Shabbos. Oh, now you have a problem. Why? Because what is shchita on Shabbos? That's an issue d'oraisa. If it's a carbon, which probably no one knows, everyone makes this mistake. We bring carbonos on Shabbos, believe it or not. Avada, we bring a carbon tamid, you shechti, you bring the carbon, only if it's a carbon. But if it's not a carbon, why is it not a carbon? Because it has a mum, then it's a dreadful aveira. Chayiv chatos. And the tzarich tamid acher, you have to bring another carbon tamid. So what's the kasha of the Gemara? Over here, what do you think you're doing? You think you're bringing a carbon tamid. So why are you chayiv chatos?
You didn't do the steps that were required.
Oh, Omar lei. So this was a kasha posed. May say Rabbi Yosef as the kasha. So he responded, Bar mina dahi. Don't ask from that question. Bar mina, accept. Bar means accept. Mina from it, dahi of that. What? Why? What's the difference? Doit maralo. We learned on it. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Chatoy. Omar Rav Amnuna Sabo. Omar Rav Yitzchak bar Ashiyan. Omar Rav Huna. Omar Rav. Quite the linealogy over there. Kigoin. Shevia Melishka. You brought it from the room. She'inon mivukarim. That animals were not checked. Basically, you're a pesheah, you're negligent. You only could take an animal and bring it as a carbon without checking it if what? You have reason to assume it was checked, like you said. You skipped a step over here. But if you go to a room of all the animals not checked, what are you doing bringing it as a carbon?
By the bird, it said Beinam of Karim. Because if it was an oil pile,
Correct.
then you'd be tired.
Excellent.
Still, you bring this comment on- Someone wants to shop the Talmud on Shabbos. They have to bring it to the baseline.
So a tamid is a carbon seabird. I don't believe we ever bring a carbon yachal on Shabbos. That's a good question. I don't think so. But we do all the avodah on Shabbos. But yeah, in a chanami, it comes out very interesting that on Shabbos you're shechting the carbon. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Carrying the animal.
What is any
The question is like, does the animal have to be in the base of Mikdash before Shabbos?
Pashtas, yeah, Pashtas. There was rooms in the base of Mikdash. Animals were kept. Yes, Rav David. I'm sorry, Rav Menachem.
what does any of this have to do with the previous sugya?
Again, because the kasha is, you want to know what's the shaykhs over here? The kasha was, our sugya is a sugya that when you do an avera, thinking you're doing a mitzvah, you carrying out your lulav, you think you're doing a mitzvah. What's the halacha? A special exemption from a carbon. You don't bring a carbon. Why do you not bring a carbon? Because you were torrid, you were thinking about the mitzvah. So asks the Gemara, 1 second. Over here, you think you're bringing a carbon tamid. You go, you take an animal, you shecht it, you bring it. So why you chayev achatos? You should be potter. Why should you be potter? Because you were torrid. You thought you were doing a mitzvah. Answers the Gemara, no. That only works if you have reason. Like Rabbi Yaakov said, you can't go and bring a giraffe. Said, oh, I didn't realize it wasn't a tamid. It's ridiculous. Here you went, you took an animal off the street, it had a mum. Shalom Aleichem, it had a mum. You didn't have any reason to think it didn't have a mum. You took it from the room. Okay, let's go Javaiter. Zok the Helig Mishnah. Is anyone around for 60 Helig tomorrow night? David, you're around? Avi, yay, nay, you're not sure? Menachem, you're not sure? Rabbi Yaakov? You're not sure? Okay, we'll put on let's put on the chat tomorrow. I could be there at 8:45. We could hop 45 minutes. The mile would be we could finish the parak together. But if Adam's not around, we could do it here. I guess let's communicate tomorrow. We're mamish there. But let's start. Here we go. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Mikabeles isha miyad bina. A woman can accept. Mikabeles isha. A woman can accept miyad bina from the hands of her son, or miyad baila from the hands of her husband. What in the world is she accepting? Says Rashi. Again, Rashi the Heilige Rebbe on the third line. What is she accepting? Es lulavehen, the lulav. And what's the chiddush? Says Rashi weiter. And we don't say you're moving something that you do not need. So we'll see what that means more. But says the Mishnah, Mikabeles Isha, a woman can accept from the hands of her son, from the hands of her husband. Umachzirasai, and she can return it. Where? Lemayim. Whoa. You can put it back into a bucket of water. When? B'Shabbos. Azachin. Shabbos, you take your adasim out of the bucket of water, you shake them, and you put them back into the water. Why? So Rashi says practically, why are you putting it in the water? You don't want it to wither. Now, why are you allowed to put it into the water? That we're going to have to see. B'Shabbos, says the Mishnah further. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, says the Heilige Rabbi Yehuda. B'Shabbos, machzirin. On Shabbos, you could return it. B'Yom Tov, on Yom Tif, moisifin, you can add on. And u'b'moyed, and on Chol HaMoyed, machlifin, you can change. That means the water. We'll see what that means. End of part A of the Mishnah. Part B of the Mishnah. Katan hayodel l'nanea. Chayiv belulav. Okay, so we have a bunch of halachas over here. A woman can take a lulav from her husband or her child, put it back into the water on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. On Shabbos, you can put it back. On Yom Tov, you could add on. Chol HaMoed, you could change. And a katan that knows how to shake could shake. 3 halachas. Let's learn one line in Gemara, Zakti Gemara. Pshita. It's Bashit. Explains the Gemara. Ma'u detema, I would have thought. Hoyel v'isha lav bas chiyuvahi. A woman does not have a chiyuv. Ema lo yitzeh kabel. I would think she cannot accept it. Why? It's muksa. Can't just stop and pick up a lulav. She would think she's not allowed to because she doesn't have a mitzvah. Kamash malan. Kamash malan, she's allowed to. Why? Why? Says Rashi, a mayridik a chiddush. Look at Rashi. Kivon diroi linetilas anoshim. Men could take the lulav. Tairas kliya love. Umutter letilta bakal. So we just realized something fascinating. The Mishnah is not talking about Hilchos Lulav at all. It's a Mishnah about Hilchos Muksa. Is a woman allowed to be the vehicle? Take the lulav and put it back in the water. You would think, oh, you're not allowed to.
Talking about in a case where you're supposed to check on Shabbos.
But she's not getting the mitzvah. So she's allowed to facilitate the movement of the lulav into the water. Why? Because it's not muksa, because the husband can take it. We'll pick it up from here.